Welcome to the Men's ADHD Support Group. I'm really excited to be back at it this year with our events and getting back into things. I think towards the end of last year, things got a little bit busy with holiday and New Year's, and we're really looking to get back into the community aspect of things, and events with different guest speakers and experts have been a large driver of what we do as a nonprofit. So I'm really, really excited to be back into this. And today we have a very special guest, very special returning guest, and it is my good friend, Brendan Mahan. Brendan Mahan, for the few people in the ADHD community who do not know who he is, Brendan Mahan is an ADHD coach. He is a host of ADHD Essentials, and he is the author of the upcoming book that you can buy on Barnes& and Noble's website, Overcoming the Wall of Awful. Brendan, we are excited to hear this conversation because one of the things that we see a lot within our community is a lot of men who struggle with dealing with rejection
Yep.
in their relationships. It's a thing that we go through at scale, and we don't really get a chance to talk or learn about this. So I'm really, really excited as Brendan's going to be talking to us about navigating rejection and RSD in relationships. Brendan, welcome on.
Yeah, thank you. It's February. Saturday is Valentine's Day. So when we say relationships, it's easy to jump to like romance. And sure, but not exclusively, right? I don't want everybody to have hearts on their eyes while we're having this conversation because a relationship is a relationship is a relationship. Some are more complicated than others, some are more intimate than others, some are closer than others, but a relationship is a relationship is a relationship. So these ideas and concepts apply to everything from a spouse to a boss to somebody you bumped into in the grocery store one time, right? Like it's not necessarily any specific flavor. If we start wandering into specific flavors, I'll tell you, right? Like I might say, this, if you're dealing with a spouse or a romantic partner, here's a way to do this, or a roommate or something. But for the most part, we're just talking any kind of relationship. This stuff, I'm going to start pretty broad and we'll whittle it down from there. Rejection sensitivity is what we're talking about, right? It's what we're looking at. Can we just call it what it is? It's anxiety. Like that's what we're talking about, right? It's a specific flavor of anxiety, but it's just anxiety. And one of the things I think happens when we narrow it all the way to rejection sensitivity is we lose track of the fact that it's an anxiety response. And we think it's something bigger than it is, or something more magical or more mystical or more mysterious than it is. And it's not. It's anxiety. It's anxiety related to rejection, but it's still anxiety. So the first thing we really want to think about is how anxiety works, right? How does it play out in the brain is where we're going to start. So we've got two components of the brain that we're really going to focus on. I'm very much simplifying for the sake of brevity here. So there's other aspects of the brain that I'm not going to be digging into too much. But in effect, we have the prefrontal cortex right here, right? This part of the brain. Prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that lets us make logical decisions. It helps us regulate our emotions. It helps us to plan, prioritize, all those executive functions that we talk about with ADHD. That's the prefrontal cortex. We also have the amygdala. The amygdala is like here. And it's this little kind of walnut-sized part of the brain. It is responsible for receiving information and deciding if it is a threat or not. It's basically constantly scanning the environment and going, are we safe? Is it going to be okay? How scared do we need to be? When you've got ADHD in the mix, your amygdala might be a little more responsive than a neurotypical person's, right? You're going to have a little more trouble regulating your emotions because your prefrontal cortex is not as developed as we would like. And you might have a little bit of a more responsive amygdala that's seeing threats where they aren't. If you have an anxiety disorder, then it is perceiving threats more regularly. It is more responsive. It is more active, right? So if you have ADHD and an anxiety disorder of some sort, You have a more active amygdala. If you have ADHD, you might not have an anxiety disorder, but I tended to make the case that if you have ADHD, you just have anxiety. You're just more likely to be experiencing anxiety. It could be in the form of trauma. It could be in the form of I never feel like I'm doing it right, which is like I kind of will call it lowercase t trauma. If we're calling I witnessed a murder, I was in a fiery car wreck, I was a like fireman or a police officer or a soldier or a nurse. Like now we've got big T trauma, but the brain doesn't necessarily care about the size of the trauma. It just is that was a bad thing and it was upsetting and bothersome and concerning and I am anxious because of it. So ADHD tends to have a bunch of little traumas, right? It's trauma by a million little cuts is typically how we work. Unless you also have life experience where you've got big trauma, which is also possible with ADHD. In fact, kind of probable with ADHD. Not a rabbit hole we're going to walk down right now. But consequently, right, we are likely to have more responsive amygdala. We're likely to be more anxious. And one of the places where our anxiety will go and live is in our relationships and in rejection. So when I am concerned that I might be rejected, I'm going to end up processing information from more of an emotional place and specifically a safety place, right? Am I safe? Am I not safe? I'm seeking safety. This situation, I don't feel safe. Well, there's lots of ways I might do that. I might become a people pleaser. I might avoid people entirely. I might get super skilled with my social skills. I might decide to give up that I can never have social skills again and avoid stuff, right? Anything in between, too. So that's kind of the model I want to take for this rejection sensitivity stuff. It's anxiety aimed at social encounters. It's anxiety aimed at potentially our self-worth, potentially our ability to interact with others in a way that is comfortable, in a way that works, for lack of a better term. And I am not saying that the way you interact with people doesn't work. I'm saying you might think it doesn't work, even if it does. So that's what we're playing with, right? We have this sensitivity to rejection. I am concerned that I'm going to be rejected by the people I'm in relationship with. That is the way the anxiety is working. And as a result, I'm processing more emotionally and less cognitively, right? I'm not necessarily making good, careful decisions, well thought out decisions. I'm just like, that person's mad at me. Ah, right. And now all of a sudden I'm fawning all over them and trying to make them like me when they already do. And maybe my fawning on them is more than they want to deal with. And now they are kind of standoffish because they're like, I need that person to calm down. This is the kind of stuff we want to pay attention to. When we have conflict, right? Because that's typically when we're concerned about getting rejected. If everything's going smoothly, hopefully we're not worried about being rejected, but we'll circle back on that in a minute when we talk about sort of male loneliness and isolation and that kind of stuff. When it comes to a pre-existing relationship, right? And we have a conflict in that relationship. Typically, that's because one or both of us is approaching the situation from a place of emotion. So we're processing information emotionally rather than cognitively. If there's an issue, if there's a problem, and we're both approaching it cognitively, we might disagree on how to solve it, but we're balanced usually. We're like, this is a way to solve it, and da 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 da, right? And we sort of analytically decide which of the two choices is the best way to go. But if we're emotional, now we're taking things personally. Now we're defensive. Now we're arguing, that kind of stuff. Emotions don't solve problems, they identify problems. Anxiety sees problems everywhere and lies to us. Our anxiety is not a reliable narrator, but it becomes our narrator if it's significant enough. And it starts telling us that person doesn't like you. You're just bad at talking to people, which doesn't have to be true, but that's what our anxiety is going to tell us. Because what our anxiety wants to do is protect us from harm. That's its deal, right? It's like what our anxiety is trying to do is keep us safe. And if we have an overactive amygdala, if we have an anxiety disorder, potentially, our anxiety is going, that's too dangerous. That's too dangerous. That's too dangerous. If we listen to it, our world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. By way of example, my son, this is not rejection sensitivity, but it's a good illustration of my point. My son has obsessive compulsive disorder, which is an anxiety disorder. It was related to school. At one point, he would not walk on the streets that are on our in our neighborhood because the school bus drove on him. You want to talk about your world getting small? He couldn't go anywhere because he couldn't go on the street, right? So he's sort of trapped on our block. Not even because he didn't really want to even leave the house. We got through that. He's fine now. I broke through a little bit by making him go trick or treating one year. I was like, look, kid, candy. We got him out of our neighborhood and then he was fine. And if we have an anxiety disorder, if we have a rejection sensitivity, then the anxiety is saying to us, hey, this isn't safe, right? You might get rejected, so you should not go talk to those people. You should not go do that thing because it might be dangerous. You might get hurt. And it's wrong. It's lying to us. Because if we don't go and do that thing, we don't grow. And we are not weak. We are not fragile. We can go and get turned down and get rejected and move on with our lives. It doesn't mean that we're hurt. It doesn't mean we're damaged. It doesn't mean we're going to get killed or anything like that. It just means that that person doesn't want to hang out with us. It just means that group of people are not interested in us. That's okay. Find another group of people. You know, you'll be all right. But if we listen to the anxiety and go, okay, then I'll just hide, it's like you got nothing. Like your world gets smaller and you get smaller as a result because you're not having experiences that are going to help you grow and help you improve and learn new things. So that's rejection sensitivity, right? That's the level of potential intensity that we're talking about. And it's also the kind of lies that we're talking about. Your rejection sensitivity is lying to you. And that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It absolutely is, but it's still lying to you. Guy Winch, The Emotional First Aid is the book. In that book, he talks about how the rejection specifically lights up the same region of the brains that physical pain lights up, which, like, that's not great. But he also talks about how if you take some Tylenol when you're in a situation where you might get rejected, it's easier to absorb and easier to manage because Tylenol is affecting that same part of the brain, right? So it can mute the level of intensity of that rejection. So something to play with. Don't overdo Tylenol. Just take one or two if you have a job interview or something. But it's a way to maybe mitigate this. And also, even though it hurts, it's not real pain. It's not like a broken leg. It's not physical pain, I should say. It's real emotional pain. But we can survive it. In learning how to absorb that is the way to go. It's like an old salesman trick where a salesman will go out and try to get rejected. Like they're not like being jerks and actively trying to get rejected necessarily, but they're going out there and they're like, today I'm going to go out and get rejected 15 times. Because I know that mathematically, if I get 15 rejections, I'm going to get one sale, right? So instead of measuring, I need three sales, once they figure out their ratio of sales to rejections, a lot of salesmen will seek the rejections. They'll be like, I need 20 rejections to get three sales. I have to make 6 sales today. So my objective is 40 rejections, right? Like that's the approach. It's an interesting strategy. And it's a way to learn how to absorb rejection. It's a way to learn how to find out that that's not the end of the world, right? So maybe go and seek out opportunities to get rejected, like make requests that are going to probably get turned down. Go to McDonald's and see if you can get a Big Mac meal for $4. Just ask them, what's the worst thing? They're like, no. Well, you got rejected and you survived. Maybe you luck out and they're like, sure thing, here. I don't know, but that's a thing that we can do, right? We can play with ways to seek out rejection, maybe by making a request that is ridiculous and unlikely to work, and you're probably going to get turned down. And then off you go. It doesn't mean you're terrible. It doesn't have to hurt. Even if you're looking to ask a girl out, you're at a bar and you're just chatting up some woman like that, okay, maybe this is going to be the rejection. I don't know. But If you only talk to one woman that night, or man, do your thing, right? If you're only talking to one potential romantic partner at the bar that night, and you're really worried and upset about I might get rejected, if that person rejects me, that means that I'm bad. I'm a terrible person. Like that, it doesn't have to mean anything about you. It can just mean that person's not interested for a million different reasons that do not involve you. They might already have a partner in a romantic way. They might not have any interest at all in romance, and they're just not there right now. The story we tell ourselves around our rejection is often very negative. It's often like that I'm the terrible person and that's why that thing happened. But if you can make the story silly, make the story funny, that person at the bar didn't want to talk to me because they had to fart and they wanted me to go away. Like that doesn't make me feel bad. It's silly, it's funny, it like lightens my mood, let me bounce and okay, cool. I want to get away from that person anyway because it's going to smell really bad where they are right now at any moment. It's a way to be able to absorb it. Change the story that you're telling yourself. And that means you have to notice the story you're telling yourself, right? You probably already know. If you take, I mean, you're not going to do it right now while I'm babbling at you, but if you sit down and think through some of the times when you've gotten really anxious about being rejected, odds are it's the same story. Odds are you're telling yourself the same story over and over again, or the same handful of stories. If you know what they are, you can work on changing them. You can work on adjusting them. And this is because we're often the main character in our own story, right? Especially guys, like we're men, right? For most of our lives, because this has only started to change in the last 10 to 20 years and barely change. And there's all kinds of pushback on it. For most of our lives, most of the major movies and books and stories that we've experienced, the main character is a dude. And we are probably relating to that dude. So we are the main character. My life got so much easier when I stopped looking at myself as the main character because it took the pressure away. It let me support other people more effectively. My lens, most of the time, is that I am a supporting character in everyone else's story. And oh man, has it made my life easier. I have a tendency, I have big main character energy, in case you haven't noticed. And I have a tendency to wind up in leadership positions. I tend to lead. Mark and I have had conversations about this where I was like, I will be happy to join the men's ADHD support group board, but we got to be really clear that I am Merlin. I'm the wizard. I'm going to show up and do some cool stuff, and then I'm going to disappear, and I can only get so involved because the more involved I get, the more I'm going to end up doing leadership stuff. I don't want to be king. I want to be the wizard. I want to let Mark be king. Mark is King Arthur. I'm Merlin. That's it, right? I'll show up and do some cool stuff and then I'll bounce. And 6 months, a year later, I'll have some other cool stuff to do. I have to set those boundaries because I know how I work, right? I have to make it clear I'm the supporting character so I don't get extra stressed about all my responsibilities with the men's ADHD support group and the myriad of other things that I do. In all of those things, I have to be a supporting character because in my life, I'm the main character. And that's my business, that's my family. But even with my family, I'm like, nope, I'm the supporting character. I'm there to support my kids. I have identical twin sons who are 17. We're starting to look at colleges and stuff. I support them. It's their story. So when they leave, I'm not going to be like, oh no, my kids are gone. I'm like, no, dope. Go tell your story, right? Go be your story. Go do it. When my wife has stuff going on, it is her story. It's not my story. What she does or doesn't do doesn't have to reflect well or poorly on me. What my kids do or don't do doesn't have to reflect well or poorly on me. When I start feeling like it does, I know I have to get out of my main character lens, which doesn't mean that if I have needs, those shouldn't be met, right? Like I absolutely say, I need this, I need that. It's a place I have could stand some growth, but I do make those requests and make my needs known so that I get the stuff that I need. But that lens of I'm the supporting character in everyone else's story instead of I'm the main character helps me to manage my own rejection sensitivity. And it helps me to approach things in a healthier way. it's a trap that's really easy to fall into, is that we tell the story and then we're the main character in the story and then everything is about us. If you start looking at it from the other person's perspective and start going, oh, wait, what might that mean? It gets easier. I had a client who he was a high school kid and he was melting down. He had ADHD and autism, this kid, melting down. It was significant. I wasn't even supposed to meet with him that day. Mom called me and was like, can you come talk to him? Sure thing. He's in the driveway pacing back and forth when I show up and telling me he had like one friend. And he's like, Tommy's not my friend anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? Tommy came in a class today and he started to walk towards me and then he just walked away from me and went and talked to these other kids that my client had conflict with. And so he's not my friend anymore. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. That doesn't at all mean that Tommy isn't your friend anymore. That's doesn't say anything about how Tommy feels about you. But well, why'd he go talk to those people that I have conflict with? And I was like, maybe he needed help with the homework and he knew you didn't do it because this kid didn't do homework and he knew they would have done it. So he went over to them to find out something about the homework. Like it could be that straightforward. It doesn't have to have anything to do with you. But he was taking a main character approach. He was like, this is my story. And the fact that Tommy didn't talk to me when he came in the room means that he doesn't like me. That was Tommy's story. That was Tommy's deal of going into the room and what he was doing. Something similar happened to me when I went to my high school reunion recently. And there was one person, there were two people actually, but one of them I had already communicated with. There was one woman she was one of the few people I wanted to actually see at this reunion because I had hung out with her in high school and most of the people who were going I hadn't hung out with. I wasn't opposed to talking to them and seeing them, but there was a few people I actively wanted to see. So I sent this person a message on Facebook and was like, hey, if you're going to the reunion, let me know. Because like I'm kind of on the fence about it, but I actively would like to see you. You're one of the few people I actually want to see. So please let me know if you're going to go or not, because that'll help me make my decision. She didn't get back to me. And I was like, all right. And then I ended up going and she comes in and I was like, I don't know if she didn't get back to me because she's mad at me or doesn't like me or I did something 30 years ago that I don't remember or what. But I was like, all right. And I sort of was talking to the two people that I had been talking to and I stayed over there instead of just going and greeting her, which I was what I wanted to do. Right. But I was like, all right, well, you didn't get back to me. So I don't really know where things stand. I was having a rejection sensitive moment. Right. Because the two people I was talking to were not anybody I knew. I met them that night. It was a guy who moved into our high school junior year and his wife. So like I had no idea who these people were. And once I wrapped that up, I went over and said hello to her and she was totally down to talk to me. We hung out for the rest of the night and we were both very glad to have reconnected. But I had this really strong rejection sensitive moment of like, oh, she must have some issue with me because she's not like greeting me. She can see me, but she's not greeting me in any way. And it's entirely possible that she was doing the same thing, that she was like, well, Brendan's not greeting me as I walk in the door. Maybe he's mad at me because I didn't get back to him, right? It's entirely possible she didn't get back to me because she has other stuff to do, right? It's not because she's upset with me. But my rejection sensitivity played out like you would think it would. And I managed it. I went like, all right, well, I'll wrap up this conversation and then I'll go say hi and see what happens. And if she doesn't want to talk to me, she doesn't want to talk to me. But that's not how it went. And I think that our rejection sensitivity can get in the way fairly easily, right? Like it's entirely possible that there's some other timeline where I just didn't go and talk to that person. And that I had a less good night as a result, right? I would have not have enjoyed my night as much if I had not said hello to my friend Jen. I know because I had a good night having in talking to her. And potentially I would have avoided other people if she was talking to them, right? Like if we play it out to the nightmare scenario, she's talking to some other folks and I'm not going over there because she's over there. And now I'm not talking to like Glenn and other people that I would have liked to have connected with. Like that's how destructive our rejection sensitivity can be. And if we don't realize that, we can't push against it. We can't stand up to it. And we want to. We want to stand up to it because we want to have the opportunity to reconnect with a friend we haven't talked to for 30 years and have a couple of hours just chilling out and catching up and enjoying that conversation, right? That's a better time than, man, I feel awkward and uncomfortable because I feel like I can't go over there because that person might be mad at me from something I did 30 years ago. Like it's bananas. So that like we're talking about rejection sensitivity. We're looking at it as an anxiety response. We're looking at it in terms of the story that we tell ourselves when the rejection sensitivity is starting to play and starting to come up. And we're looking at it in terms of that main character energy and the main character story. Because if we instead step outside of ourselves and go, what's the story for that person? How might a story about them cause this situation to make more sense if it has nothing to do with me? Now I can tamp down that anxiety. Now I can tamp down that rejection sensitivity because it's not about me, it's about them. One of the things that I was thinking about, I'm doing a little bit of a pivot. Shane and I were talking about how sort of loneliness and self isolation and that kind of stuff comes up for men. So a little bit of the male loneliness stuff. And earlier tonight, I was thinking about that. And I don't know, I was looking at something on social media and you guys have seen the like, no one is coming to save you nonsense. Like I hate that. That is often written in a way that is like, I don't know, dark, foreboding, dangerous, like threatening, right? Like no one is coming to save you. You're all by yourself. Blah, 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 blah. Be a tough man and burr, 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 right? I am not a fan of that kind of approach because I've read a lot of superhero comics and that's some nonsense, right? I can tell you that there are people coming to save you. And I know because I am one of them. It is my job. Like, not just like because people pay me to do that, but because it's what I do. Like, that's how I work in this world is I'm going around trying to help. I am a helper. And the helpers are the people who are coming to save you. So there are people coming to save you. So I want to take that lens of like, there's no one coming to save you and turn it on its head, right? Because that's what I do. I don't think if we take it out of the main character, like no one's coming to save me, I'm the main character. I should go kick all the ass, blah blah blah, fight the bad guys, blah blah blah, right? But there's no bad guys for me to fight. I am a black belt in Kempo, and I only fight people at the dojo. Like I'm not running around kicking ass in the streets. Like that's not a thing. So instead of no one is coming to save me, I tend to think of it as, hey, no one's saving them. You can. So if I want to be the main character, I got to go save other people, right? Like I have to go help. That's how when I'm being the main character, I'm being the main character in order to initiate, I'm going to go help that person. And then as soon as I start helping, I am now the supporting character in their story, right? Because I'm not living in a superhero comic. It's not the story about how I helped those people. It's their story, and I'm in there somewhere trying to make things easier. So, one of the ways I do this is by I combat male loneliness like in my personal life, right? You guys, some of you, I'm sure, watch professional wrestling. It's a thing that I watch. I've been watching it since I was, I don't know, like 8 or whatever, on and off. It's a way to stay connected to my friends. So when there is a significant wrestling event like WrestleMania or the Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, or the Saturday Night Main Event, whatever, it's about monthly. When there's a wrestling event, I invite some buddies over and we watch nonsense wrestling for a night. I have 3 buddies who come over pretty much every time. Those guys didn't know each other, right? Like they're not friends. They're all friends of mine, but they weren't friends together. And they're starting to connect right now they all come over and they're asking about each other about the stuff that's going on in their lives, right? Like, hey, I heard you got a new job. How's that book that you're writing going? What's up with your kid? Like those questions are starting to happen, and that's good. That's what I want to see happen, right? That's me forming a little community and helping these guys who, I don't know, they may be lonely, they may not be lonely, but we all have this thing in common. We're all willing to give up a Saturday night to goof around and watch some nonsense wrestling. So I'm coming to save them, right? That's me going, male loneliness is dumb. Let me fight it. And that's what all of you can do as well, right? You guys can pick whatever the thing is that you're like, I'm going to address this and just do it. Just start navigating it. And you will find that there are people who are appreciative of that. You might not find them right away. I can't guarantee anything. But when we start doing the things that need to be done, when we start filling in the gaps that we see, with our effort, there lies community, there lies worth, there lies connection. And that's how we get past rejection sensitivity. That's how we get away from it, right? We're just not getting rejected left and right like we're afraid we are. It's a lie. So a couple of pieces to this, right? One, as I was talking to Shane did a quick search of sort of the group and some of the conversations that have come up in the group of recently. And one of the things he talked about when it comes to isolation was that it's safer for me if I'm just alone and safer in general, right? Some men are concerned that if they try to make connection with other people, they're going to get hurt. And men with anger issues are concerned that they might hurt somebody, right? Like hopefully just with words and deeds, not like physically. But that's possible too. That doesn't have to be true, right? Like yeah, you might get hurt, but you'll survive it and you might hurt someone. If you are so volatile that you're afraid you're going to physically hurt somebody, please seek help. Please go to anger management, go to therapy, do the things you need to do so that you are a safer person. But if your concern is that you're going to like step wrong, say the wrong thing, and hurt someone, you might. I've hurt people, and I'm like, I work really hard to not hurt people, but I've absolutely hurt people. I've done it wrong. I'm not one of those people who hurts and therefore hurts people, who is hurting and therefore hurts people. But all of us make mistakes. All of us screw up. All of us are going to do it wrong sometimes, and we're going to hurt people. And hopefully we can be forgiven. Hopefully we can accept forgiveness. Like that's another component to this, right? Is like, yeah, if I hurt my wife's feelings and she gets over it, I have to accept that things are okay, right? I don't have to walk on eggshells forever. But that's hard. I know it's hard for me. I tend to be pretty guilt ridden if I know I've hurt someone. And some of that is my rejection sensitivity. But we talk it out, right? My wife and I communicate pretty effectively. And that's a piece of being in relationship is you've got to be able to communicate with the people you are in relationship with about where things are and how they're going. And what can I do better? What do I need you to do better? Because we can need our partners and spouses and friends to do things differently too. That matters. I just want to do a check-in because we're at like 40 minutes in. Are there any questions now? Am I hitting things in the right area? How are we doing?
You're doing great. We do have a set of questions when you're ready for it.
Go. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, one thing I just want to say to you personally, I hope you know that when I write a book, I officially have a quote from you that is recorded saying, Mark is King Arthur. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing that. That was like 3 years ago. I started saying that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that was fun for me to hear. Also, I want McDonald's now, so thank you for encouraging me to go. All right. So one question we got here. My wife says she can't even give me feedback anymore because I shut down or blow up.
yeah. Mhm.
She's right, but I don't know how to stop it. What does that process even look like?
My wife and I had a similar experience, right? Where not even my wife, my girlfriend who I was living with, right? We moved in together and got engaged like pretty quick. And so she's probably my fiance when we had this conversation. But money would come up because we were learning how to live together and learning how to have shared finances and all that stuff. I sucked with money. I still suck with money, but not as much as I used to. And when money came up, I got really sensitive and really defensive. I didn't make a lot of money back then. I still kind of don't. It's getting better. But back then, I wasn't making much at all. I was like a teaching assistant in a middle school. So I was making, I don't know, maybe $20,000. And my wife had a real job and a real career and was like the breadwinner. So there was lots of layers of guilt and shame for me, right? One, I'm the man and I'm supposed to make all the money and be the breadwinner, and I'm not. Two, my wife is doing, my fiance is doing that, and we're supposed to be getting married. And can I even marry this woman if I can't make enough money to provide, right? Like all of those cultural things are coming up, which are nonsense because man, have those dynamics changed. And she's always made more money than me. But so I'd get really sensitive, right? And I was the one that was like, I was the window that the money was getting thrown out of, right? Like she's much better at not spending money, and I tend to spend it. And one day she sent me an email. So because we'd have this conversation, I would immediately spike. And one day she just sent me an email that was like, hey, we need to talk about money. This is the stuff we need to talk about. It was brilliant. It was great. I don't know if she did it intentionally to help me manage my emotional response or not, or if she was just, it was on her mind, so she sent me an email. But what that email did was it gave me time to process, both cognitively and emotionally, before we had the conversation. One of the things that happens when we have hard conversations, especially conversations that involve criticism, is typically the person receiving the criticism is on the back foot. The person giving it has been thinking about this for a day, a week, a year, who knows, right? They've thought it backwards and forwards and completely thoroughly, and they have all the ideas and concepts. And then poor Brendan is like, what about money? You know, like all of a sudden there's this deluge of information, all of it critical of you, and you're on the back foot and you feel like you have to defend yourself, but you don't know how, and you're totally emotional, and this is overwhelming, and I can't think that fast, and all that stuff. It's an asymmetrical communication, right? Like there's asymmetrical information. The person providing the criticism has all the information. The person receiving it has almost none. Maybe they start making connections and realizing where this is heading, but they're not much there. So I recommend giving it to them in writing in advance. It can be a text message, it can be an email. I don't care. Probably not a letter. That takes too long. But like, talk to your spouse, in this case, your wife, about, hey, you're right. I suck at receiving criticism, but it's because I'm having this flood of emotions that gets in the way of me being able to think critically and carefully about what you're saying. And I know that what you're saying is valid, and I do want to be able to respond to it in a thoughtful way. Can you give me a bullet point list of some of the stuff and limit the bullet points, right? Like, we don't want, this isn't like a 4-page bulleted list. Like, that's bananas. Maybe 3, 5, something like that. Like, not a lot. And a bulleted list, not like big long paragraphs. We don't want that. We just want, here's the main pieces. Boom, 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 boom. So that I can read it and process it and move on. And then we can have a conversation about it. A plus for this is that we're avoiding judgmental words and we're avoiding assumptions and that kind of stuff. But that might not happen in the bulleted list that you receive. So you've got to be looking for those kinds of things, right? My best example for this is report cards, because I give this speech to teachers a lot. So I'm going to pivot over there. We've all been through school. You'll all get what I mean. I hate comments on report cards because they're almost all judgmental in a way that isn't useful. One of the most glaring ones is inconsistent effort, right? No, inconsistent results. That does not mean inconsistent effort because you don't know where my effort is going, right? My son with OCD, he was putting a lot of effort into just being in his chair in the building, let alone writing an essay, right? Like, it wasn't inconsistent essay effort. It was consistent effort to be there in the building and a limited amount of what's left for that essay. So if we're going to give that bulleted list, we want to pay attention to, like, how am I phrasing this? Am I making assumptions that don't make sense, that don't necessarily have to be true? Doesn't have to be that. Well, it just seems like you don't try when it comes to the chores. Like, that's not what's happening, right? It's not a matter of trying. It's a matter of there's a skill set that's missing. I need reminders. I need to set stuff in my phone so that I remember. The reminder doesn't have to come from my spouse, but it does have to come from somewhere.
Yep.
So, like, how do I solve those problems? We want the bulleted list to be like, here's the problems, and then we want to work on solving it. And when we receive criticism and also when we provide it, that's the approach that I want to take, right? I want to be like, this is just a problem to solve. It doesn't have to be a statement on anyone's worth as a human. It's just a problem to solve. And how we solve it is can vary wildly. The biggest danger is you would solve it one way, your partner would solve it another way, and for some reason your partner won't let you solve it the way you would solve it, even though it would be solved. Like, I see that conflict come up a lot. Eventually we can communicate about that and just go, let me try and see if I can crack this nut. Go ahead.
Yeah, especially the report card comments. I mean, mine was always, it's like almost everybody in the ADHD community, but Mark just needs to apply himself a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more. And as a kid,
Right.
I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I have to apply myself so much just to brush my teeth. So
Yeah.
I fully resonated with that. But we got some questions. I want to make sure I get to them. So one of them here is rejection sensitivity dysphoria mostly expressed as anger?
Hmm. Yeah. Because you're a man, right? So all right, here's the deal, gentlemen. Anger is also a lie. It's like a comforting lie. When men are anxious, women too, but like we're talking men, when we get anxious, oftentimes our anxiety, our emotions get papered over with anger because most of the other negative emotions make us feel vulnerable. And a lot of us keep receiving the message that we are not allowed to be vulnerable. So, what do I do if I'm feeling humiliated or rejected or isolated? If I'm feeling inadequate, that hurts. That's painful. That's awful, right? That might make you feel ashamed. So, what do? You get mad at the fact that you feel hurt. You get mad at the fact that you feel ashamed. You get mad at the fact that you feel inadequate. And then that anger goes somewhere else, right? It's a protective device. It's defensive, right? Because if I'm angry, then I can pretend that, especially if I'm angry at someone, then I can pretend that they're the one that's vulnerable and I'm not vulnerable. Just know that's what's going on, right? And if that's what's going on, try to recognize it, try to ride it out, and try to find out what's hiding underneath the anger. What's this? What's the vulnerable, soft, squishy emotion that you don't want to feel and don't want to face that's hiding underneath that anger? You have to face that emotion. You have to feel that emotion so that you can process through it and come out the other side with some useful information that you can use later.
Love it. Love it.
Oh, and let me add, feel free to work with a clinician to help you do that. Like you don't have to do that by yourself. You can do that with guidance of a mental health clinician, a social worker, a psychologist, something like that.
That's a good point. All right. I got passed over for a promotion and I can't let it go. I know I'm qualified, but now I'm convinced everyone at work thinks I'm incompetent. Is that RSD or am I reading the situation incorrectly?
I don't know. I don't work with you. It's possible that your ADHD has caused you to make enough mistakes that people have caught on, and that's why you got passed over. That could be the case. It could also be that you're super dope and amazing at your job, and you got passed over because maybe you were more recently hired than this other person, or maybe you recently got a promotion and this other person is due for one, or maybe this person is more noticeable than you, right? Like that's a thing in corporate America is if you tend to be quiet in meetings, people don't notice you. And if someone else tends to be conversational and talkative in meetings, that person is noticed. And the person who is noticed gets the promotion. And the person who flies under the radar, they don't get in trouble, but they also don't get promoted. So, depending, I don't know how you operate at work. Like it could be any of those things. It doesn't have to be that it means you're incompetent, nobody likes you. It could just mean that you're quiet. So, like, I think you probably know the answer to this. You just have, or at least most of it. And I don't think that necessarily the answer is that you're not liked or not good enough. It might be that you're not noticed. And that just means like talk more in meetings and make your successes known a little more effectively. And you might need a mentor to learn how to do that in the culture of this place you work, but it's a thing to think about.
Yeah. I always say to people to talk in a comic nerd language, but Batman had Henry Ducard, who taught him all the detective skills and whatnot.
Hmm. Yeah,
So, all right, Gary would like to ask a question and wants to go off
sure.
mute for this one. Go ahead, Gary.
Hey, Brendan. So glad you're here. In the chat earlier, I called you ADHD royalty.
Oh,
You definitely put out some of the more, I'd say, relatable content. So thank
yay.
you for all that. And
Thank you for that. I'm honored.
so, the whole thing about RSD for me continues to be a learning process.
Hmm.
Just the hindsight of like, oh, God, throughout my life, how much RSD has like sprung up for me specifically, and how you tied RSD is just a form of anxiety. Like that's just like Captain Obvious that I've never articulated
Yeah.
that in my own brain, you know, so
Nobody
like
says that. I don't know why.
and I think that's really helpful too, because you know, the whole thing about reframing is really helpful for me. If my brain can make sense of things and like, yeah, this equals anxiety. Yeah, duh. So
Mhm,
like I know what it feels like in my body. I don't like the way it feels, and I know when it catches me off guard, especially, which is most of the time,
mhm.
it takes a while before I can actually stop myself.
Sure.
And that is mildly aggravating. I've been practicing mindful meditation for well over 2 decades now. I'm like super aware of what's going on in my body
Mhm,
when I want to. But like the heat of the thing, whether it's a situation at work or maybe it's my wife who's also another neurodivergent. Nobody has the intention of like, this is going to be a really difficult conversation here. But somebody says something and it starts getting heightened. I start feeling triggered and it's off to the races. And
mhm.
so, like, I'm really good about stopping myself when it starts happening. I'm really good about cleaning it up. What I'm just curious about, but like in the moment, I'm just wondering if there's any little tricks, little things to kind of look for that just helps me put on the brakes even quicker, possibly, before it turns into some bigger event
Let
than it needs to be.
let me start with, and you might know this, right? I might be giving you information that you already have, but there's other people here and people are going to watch the recording. But I might also say something that is a reframe for you. In mindfulness, we talk about the pause a lot, right? Like something happens and then there's the pause and then you respond. Like that's mindfulness. That's the way it gets simplified in a lot of situations. That pause moves. It is not the case that we always have something happen and then pause and then respond. And you've already alluded to this a little bit. Sometimes a thing happens and we react, right? We have the rejection sensitivity, we fly off the handle in whatever way, crying, yelling, screaming, storming off, hiding, whatever. And then after we've done it wrong, we're like, oh man, I did that wrong. That is the pause. It just happened after. And sometimes, and this is what you alluded to, we're in the middle of flying off the handle and we're like, oh no, I'm doing this wrong, right? In the midst of it. And that's the pause too. The pause is when we get that mindful awareness, when we get that third person perspective, when we get that wider lens, however you want to put it, right? That's the pause. Okay, it doesn't have to happen between stimulus and response. It can happen in the midst of the response, it can happen after the response is over. And that's just an important lens to have because it lets us give ourselves credit for cleaning up the mess in a way that indicates that I am getting better at my mindfulness practice, my ability to embrace the pause or whatever. If we could see all of that as the pause, then we can extrapolate afterwards. What I notice is this stuff, and that clues me in that these things were triggers for me, and that means I might need to notice that when this kind of thing happens, I'm going to get heightened, right? Like if we use the same language for all of it as the pause, we can start to see the pause from other angles and learn other things about like, oh man, I know that when after that big conflict happened, like my shoulders were so tense. Oh wait, and I felt so bad, and I could really feel the weight of my shoulders there. What? Hold on. Does that mean that if I start to hunch my shoulders, like it's an indication that I'm getting stressed or anxious or starting to maybe gonna fly off the handle? Does that mean that if I feel my shoulder blades tighten up, that might be a thing to pay attention to? It could be, I don't know, right? But the only way we start to notice those patterns is if we recognize that the pause exists for a longer timeline than we typically talk about it. Am I making sense, Gary?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And just as you've been describing this, I think I'm like happy with myself that I do kind of pat myself on the back when I'm able to stop myself and clean
Mhm.
it up. And I think that's just like the process because until I even knew there was such a thing as an RSD, I just like, okay, apparently I have big emotions or, I'm a really passionate guy, which is yes, that's part of the truth, but also my brain is wired to misinterpret some things and take it
Right.
personally and get defensive, which that was probably modeled to me more growing up. And yeah, like one thing that I've found to be really, really helpful is to voice to whether it's my wife or the people I work with. Like as soon as I start noticing I'm tensing up in my belly, especially, or my shoulders getting really
Mhm.
tight, and if I say it out loud, it tends to not just help me, but I think at least the people around me are aware of what's going on and maybe they tune themselves down a little bit more. Maybe they start responding a little more compassionately. Yeah.
And connected to that is we know from studies that when people are able to name what they're experiencing, it adds a measure of control. It adds a measure of agency over whatever is happening, right? And it can be, I feel frustrated. It can be, man, my stomach hurts. It like the physical version of the emotion or the name of the emotion. It gives us some agency and some control over the situation. And that helps us regulate. It's not like I say my stomach hurts, I'm feeling anxious, and then poof, I'm not feeling anxious anymore. That's not how it works. But it helps a little bit. It gets a little bit better. It gives us a little more stuff to manage. So yeah, absolutely. And if
Yeah.
we're telling other people, now they can alter how they're responding, right? Because in particularly if you're a man and like I just you guys have never met me in person. Mark and Shane have, and Braden has, but I don't think anyone else has. I am short. I'm like, I used to be 5'5". Now I'm 5'4" because I don't know, like that happens when you're old. And I'm also pretty stocky. Like I kind of look like an anvil could fall on my head and I'd be okay. Like that's just sort of how I'm built. And I get some advantages from that in situations because I'm not threatening looking, right? I look stable, but I don't look like I'm necessarily a dangerous guy. So even if I get frustrated or anxious or angry, maybe angry would be scary. I don't get angry much, but like people can usually handle it. But if you're tall and big, like Shane is a big dude. If Shane got angry, it would be scary because he's just so big. And it doesn't mean that he's a dangerous guy. It just means that he's big. So if you're with people and you're starting to feel frustrated or anxious or whatever, you're having these strong emotions, depending on your build, they might be having a really strong emotional response to that in a defensive way. Your ability to say, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm getting aggravated or whatever, they're like, oh, good, he's aware of it. He's not going to like start screaming or throw a chair at me. So it's good that you're able to communicate with your coworkers that way.
Yeah.
I think it feels like it's also can be related to the whole thing about masking too.
Mm-hmm.
If we say it out loud, it's not the dirty little secret anymore.
Right.
And
Yep.
we can let down that fucking mask,
Yeah.
be vulnerable and honest, which is way more strong anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
Mark, do we have
So,
anything else?
yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Gary, thank you for that. It's so great to
Yeah,
hear.
that was awesome.
I definitely missed hearing you speak. All right. So another question here. I'm currently looking for a new job, which is ripe for RSD,
Mhm.
especially given the current market. What advice would you give to those like myself?
In terms of job seeking or managing the rejection of it? I'm gonna assume it's kind of managing the rejection of the job search.
You know,
Yeah.
I can
Oh,
help it.
sure.
Yeah, it's more just I think managing the search of it, especially
Okay.
since I think for better or worse with a lot of jobs now, frankly, even getting a no is more than a lot
Hmm.
of recruiters. That's kind of a rarity
Right.
in of itself because ghosting unfortunately seems to be a very common practice.
Yeah. And do those jobs
So
even exist? The ones that you think you're applying to, are they even real?
exactly.
All right. So I don't know what you do. I'm going to give some general advice to anybody. If you lose your job, the first thing you do is you go to your town hall, assuming you have a job, you have a career that makes sense for this, because not every career makes sense for this, but most of them you can figure it out. Go to your town hall, open up a doing business as something consulting or whatever, right? Like something that are connected to your job, because now you don't have a gap in employment. You just were self-employed for a little while, right? So that's step one. Step two is look at the resources in your state and your town around unemployment. There are unemployment offices in every state of various levels of quality, but there's unemployment offices in every state. And you might have to go to a city. It might not be, depending on where you live. Like I don't have great answers for all of this, but I have general guidelines. Find those unemployment. If you're applying for unemployment, you have to go to these places. But if you're not, you can still go. You don't have to be collecting unemployment to go utilize the unemployment offices in your state. Though most of those unemployment offices have pretty solid networks and they know people and can get you past the electronic gatekeepers to actual humans, right? Those humans might also be gatekeepers and you might have trouble getting past them, but that's part of what the unemployment office does is they get you past even the human gatekeepers. So that's one thing to do. And Ryan, feel free to like ask me more questions if you like. We can talk if that's useful or not, your preference. And like, because just throwing resumes out into the wilds of the internet, like out into the like astral plane of the internet, it might work, it might not work. You get a new job by using your network. Like that's how people get hired. You got to use your network. And most of us don't think about our networks in the right way. Most of us think that our network is the people that we know, and it's not. A lot of us think our network ends with the people we know. It starts with the people we know. Our network is the people we know, it's who they know. That's the power of your network, right? Marc's a friend of mine. Marc's network goes to places that my network doesn't. Because I don't work in bookstores. I don't work in coffee shops. I don't live in New York City, right? So Marc's network goes to places that mine doesn't. My network goes to places that Marc doesn't. And that's the power of our network, is together, Marc can get me onto an ADHD documentary, and I can get him writing articles for Attitude Magazine, right? Like that's the power of the network. So when it comes to looking for a job, that's the lens to take is like that person knows people and how does that work? Where might they be able to get me? I even have my buddy Aaron calls me his guy who knows a guy because I just have a good network. But I have my guys who know a guy, right? Like I've got my buddy Drea. Drea knows all kinds of people. Drea like hangs out with the Gronkowskis. Like he's a photographer. He met them doing photography. Rob is not one of his buddies, but like the Gronkowski brothers, like he knows them. So that's the thing to do is think about who are the people in your network, who knows who, what kinds of people do they know, where might that person go, right? If you know someone I was helping a family friend who wanted to do music and technology. Like she's a recent college graduate. She's trying to get into music technology. I'm thinking, like, who do I know that does music? Who do I know that is big into computers? Does anybody do both? Do any of those people know each other? And that might mean there's some nexus point happening. Like the kind of thought you want to have when you're looking for a job is who might know people in the field that I'm trying to get into? And what does that mean? Right? Specifically, you want to pay attention to your entrepreneur friends because entrepreneurs have typically better networks than people who work in an office because we have to, right? If you're working in an office, you just know all the people in that office. But if you're working and trying to run your own business, you've got to know all kinds of random people. And we also have weird hours that let us go to networking events that like the dude in the office can't attend. So you want to look at your entrepreneurs and see who might they know, where might that go, and talk to those folks too. Am I answering this in a way that's useful, or am I far afield?
I think it's all very useful, and it actually is a little bit comforting because when I got let go, I emailed the WhatsApp group chat of the softball team that I played with for 5 years. Uh,
Yeah. Dope.
and I'm working on a film festival in between this time, and I can say on LinkedIn contract because he wants us to all get paid.
Hmm.
So it was certainly reassuring, and I'm, a few weeks into this process, but I can imagine that for those that are probably like just starting out that haven't hit the 2 months in mark, that was really great advice. And I'm sure a lot of people that watch this in the future will appreciate it.
And 2 months is nothing for where we are in this moment, right? Like a year from now, who knows? But in this moment, people are unemployed for much longer than that. And that's part of why you want to go open a DBA, right? Like, hey, I'm doing this thing. And then you can just say, it sounds like you do film. So like, I don't know, Remy Films or whatever, right? Like I did Remy Films forever. Like you don't have to close it. You just don't do anything with it when you're not doing anything, when you have a job that is keeping you from engaging with it. And I want to shine a light on the fact that we're still dealing with rejection sensitivity here, right? Like contacting your network, there's a fear of like, what if they say no? What if they don't really like me secretly? Like that stuff. There's still that anxiety. I'm not pretending it doesn't exist, but like, you got to ask, like this, you got to get another job. That's really important. And people who are employed right now and doing fine, dig the well now. Don't dig the well when you're thirsty. Like start making those connections now so that if you lose your job,
Yep.
you're good. And the last thing I want to say, when it comes to looking for a job, right? You only need one yes. It doesn't matter how many no's you get, right? Like this was my lens on the book. When I was trying to get my book signed, when I was trying to sign with the publishing house, I was like, I only need one yes. That's it. We can send this book proposal out to as many different people as we need to. We only need one yes. I got a really dope yes. I got a yes from one of the biggest publishers in the world. Yay. In fact, had to give out 4 no's because I got that many yeses, right? I got 5 yeses and only got to pick one of them. But you only need one yes. So better to have 2, admittedly, or 3 or 4 or 5. But you need one. So it doesn't you don't need to worry about how many no's you get. You got to worry about finding that one.
I want to add on to this because I did what you're talking about. One of the biggest criticisms I got whenever I was doing my contract work was like, hey, it looks like you're only working for these companies for 3 to 8 months. And I was getting a lot of criticism from interviews when I was going into them. And I was like, yeah, because I was intentional. I legitimately was going into Headhunter's office and saying, hey, I only want contracts for 3 to 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to work any more than that because I will lose my interest in a job and I'll start messing things up. I only want short-term contracts. Well, that looks really bad in your resume.
Mm-hmm.
And so I created Creating Order from Chaos forever ago as just a project management placeholder position. And like, so whenever you look at my resume, it's Creating Order from Chaos for 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And within that realm, there's also these little pieces that are like the work that I was doing within that business, which is all project management related stuff.
And then you can reframe it, right? Then you can go, because if your answer is, well, I knew I would get bored, so I only wanted to work on short-term projects, then they're going to be like, oh, we can't hire this guy because he can't stick around. But instead you can go, yeah, because I was hired to solve specific problems and I solved them in 3 to 8 months. That's why. And now that's a very different answer. That's like, holy shit, who's this guy? How do we get him on our team?
I like that. That is cool. Great. So Peter has a question and wants to go.
Thanks for taking my question. So I'm just curious about what you think of or what you know about William Dodson and alpha-2 inhibitors and guanfacine, clonidine, these medications for treating rejection-sensitive dysphoria. I just got diagnosed like 5 weeks ago with ADHD, and by far the biggest issue for me is RSD. And I guess there's a part of me that's hoping that this is entirely fixable with a pill. And I'm just wondering, I've been taking, in fact, guanfacine for about 4 weeks now. And honestly, if anything, it's made things worse. So whatever you have to say about that or any information you could give me.
There are 2 answers to this, right? Answer number 1 is, I believe you. If you feel like it's making it worse, probably it is. Talk to your doctor, right? Another answer is, I am not a doctor, so I intentionally don't know too much about this stuff because I don't want to end up acting like I am a doctor, especially because so many people think I'm a doctor. And like I see too many people on Facebook groups and things going, don't take Vyvanse because one time it made me poop or whatever. And like, that's not a thing, right? You just got sick. So with the caveat that I'm intentionally unaware, the stuff with guanfacine and its ability to help regulate emotions looks pretty good. Like that's how it's used. Yay. Dr. Carolyn Lynch Parcells, she's my friend and my go-to person for meds. Great, has great things to say about it. But if it's not working for you, it doesn't matter what the research says. And for all of these meds, none of them work 100% of the time for 100% of the people. That's just not how any of it works. So if it's not working for you, it's not working for you. And that's the only answer that you need. You might want to talk to your doctor and see if there's another medication to try. That's a possibility. But the only answer you really need is this isn't working. It's not working. That doesn't mean that you're a failure or you're a terrible person. It doesn't reflect on you in any way, shape, or form. It reflects on the medicine and how it interacts with your nervous system and body, and it doesn't work, and that's okay. Move on.
Cool. Also, just a little self-promotion there. We have happened to have both William Dotson and Carolyn Parcells on the men's ADHD support group. Really good YouTube videos to check.
And they've both been on my show.
Yeah.
I'm working on helping Bill get a book deal.
Yeah. I actually want to add to this because I actually had this conversation with Dr. Bill Dotson, which is pretty awesome. So there's guanfacine, clonidine, Lamictal. All three of those medications are emotional dysregulation medications. And Brendan's right. Like if guanfacine is not working for you, that's pretty common. It didn't work for me either. I got really gnarly headaches from it. I'm actually on Lamictal, and that's worked out really well for me for my emotional dysregulation. It's one of my bigger issues. It's also known as lamotrigine, but Lamictal, I think, is its brand name. But the thing is, like Brendan said, you've got to give the medications time. That's what every doctor will tell you. And to work through your system, guanfacine, clonidine, Lamictal take 3 to 6 weeks to go through your system and really start seeing results. So your doctor will probably come back and give you advice on that. But again, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I got one last one here, and then we can start getting to closing if that's okay. All right. So I'm masked so hard at work that by the time I get home, I have nothing left for my family. My wife gets the worst version of me because I've spent all day making sure my coworkers get the best version. How do I balance that?
All right. Post-restraint collapse is the term for this. We typically talk about it with kids and like holding it together at school and then coming home and being awful to mom and dad. But adults have the same thing. It happens for adults too. Couple of things. One, maybe you can unmask a little bit at work. I'm not saying fully, but like maybe you can let some of the steam off at work, behave a little more ADHD there, and you know where the line is for what's going to hurt you versus what's not going to hurt you. But maybe unmasking a little bit at work means that you can come home with some reserves, if possible. And the other piece is transitions matter for coming home as well as going to work. And I don't know if you're working from home or going to an office or what, but you got to build a transition ritual for coming home because you just have to. And some of that is planning, like when I get home, what am I going to do, right? What are the behaviors I'm going to engage in, whether it's doing the dishes or checking in with your wife or helping the kids with their homework. And some of it is emotional regulation. Like, how do I need to be emotionally when I get home? Part of that ritual should not involve, absolutely not involve alcohol or substances or anything like that. It's not going to help. Lots of men do it, and it doesn't go in a good direction. Maybe you get home 15 minutes later, but you get home a better version of you because you took a walk, you listened to 3 songs that you love while sitting in the parking lot at work or whatever. Probably not sitting in the driveway at home because that's going to like cause some drama. But maybe there's like a grocery store around the corner from your house and you can go to that parking lot and listen to 3 songs that help balance you. I don't know. But you want to build into this process emotional regulation strategies. Could be mindfulness, could be music, could be exercise, could be all kinds of different things. And potentially you want to talk to your wife about this and say, hey, look, this is what I'm noticing. I get home and you get the worst version of me. And typically that means that we are arguing and bickering for 20 or 30 minutes after I get home. And then I just storm off and I'm not useful. I would rather go to the gym for half an hour and do a bunch of cardio and come home and hopefully come home as a better version of me. Because as much as I know that means you've got another half an hour of me not helping, I also know that you're kind of getting a half an hour of me not helping anyway because I'm such a shitty human when I get home. I'm such a bad version of me. So can we try this, right? And pitch it as an experiment. Let me try this for 2 weeks or a month. I wouldn't go any further than a month. A week might not be long enough. You probably want 2 weeks to be the thing, but like discuss it with your wife. Your mileage may vary. Her, what she's willing to deal with her and accept may vary. But that you want to figure out what's going to help you regulate so that you can come home and be the person you want to be when you get home. Because this is anxiety. Guys, everything is anxiety. All the stuff that makes things harder, it's all anxiety. That anytime you hear about like a magic drug that seems to help everything, what it's probably doing is helping anxiety. Like that's because anxiety touches everything and makes everything worse. So that's the approach that I would take. If you work from home, and especially if your schedule is weird, like if sometimes I come up at 4 o'clock and sometimes I come up at 5 o'clock or whatever, just stay in your office for 10 more minutes or whatever. That's what I do. Like if I need to decompress, I just lay on the floor in my office for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then I go upstairs because I'm in the basement. But that's the way I navigate it is like if I need to, if I can't just bounce out of the office and go upstairs, I do the mindfulness meditation stuff that I need or whatever, and then I go upstairs or I listen to music or watch a YouTube video or something. So that transition piece matters.
Love it. It's a great tip, especially since a lot of us, I feel it's very common for us to do masking so heavily in our careers. And a
Mhm.
lot of us, I'm guilty of this too. Almost 100% of my executive functions will go into my career. And then when I come home, I'm just like shut down and everything annoys me. So that's a really great point. But this was a really amazing event. I'm super excited to have something that we can go to as, we consistently see rejection sensitivity and come up as an issue within our group. We now have another really great resource to share. And I thank you for being that with us tonight, Brendan. I was just curious, is there anything that you didn't get to say yet on rejection sensitivity that you wanted to add now as a final note or
The biggest thing I didn't get to talk about that I want to make sure I address is this whole isolation stuff, right? Shane and I had a conversation on Monday where he was like, you got to start with online spaces, like find good people in online spaces. And I
Mhm.
was like, yeah, but in person is better, right? So like I just did the online spaces part. Yes, fine. You've already done it. You're here, right? You're already finding online spaces that are giving you what you need and hopefully at least some of what you need. But if you're isolating, connecting with people online might still be isolating depending on how you're doing it, right? If you're like, my online space is I go to threads and yell at people, like you're isolating, dude. That's not connecting. I'm on Twitter screaming at people. Eh, get out in the world, find people that work for you. And the number one way to do that is let your freak flag fly. Like go to the places in the world, online and in reality, in the real world, that are your interests, that are your special interests. That's the way to go, right? Like I am going to play Dungeons and Dragons on Sunday. I watched nonsense wrestling, I think last weekend, right? My wife and I are going to go dancing tomorrow night and taking dance lessons, like at a West Coast swing dance place. I will be at my dojo on Thursday and on Saturday, right? Like these are my special interests. These are the things that I dig. I go to a comic shop. I don't even buy comics regularly anymore. I like graphic novels here and there. They still all know me because I go there often enough that I have conversations with them. My kids go and play Magic there every week, just about. So my kids are starting to have that. Find your third place. Home is place one, work or school is place two, or 2A and 2B if you go to work and go to school. The third place is something else. It's some other place that where you socialize and tend to see the same people again and again. Because that's how we form relationships. That's how we form connections. You got to get that repeated exposure. My biggest third place is the dojo. And the second one behind that is probably the gym or the comic book store, right? Because I don't really talk to too many people at the gym. So it's not exactly a third place. Like, find a third place. That's the deal. Like, you got to find it. I guess my other third place is the dance studio that we go to. It could be anything. It can be like we go to this bar and my band plays there every other week or whatever. My brother-in-law is like hardcore. He's like a hardcore drummer, like in a hardcore band. Blackest Dawn, I think is the name of it. And like his third place is gigs. Like he goes to gigs around New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, like in that area. And now his kid goes with him. And his kid is like this mini celebrity. He's like, I think he's 12. But he's like this, his dad's in the band. And because the third place gets you a community. So find your community online and in person. You got to have in-person communities. You just got to. And you are worth knowing. You are. You're worth knowing. You are a person who matters. And go find your people. Not everybody wants to know you. Not everybody wants to know me. I am charming as hell. And not everybody wants to know me. And that's okay. Right? But there are places where I belong. You got to find those places.
Well said. Awesome. Well, thank you for this amazing event and your always super wise insights and Yodai to the men's ADHD support group stuff. We really appreciate it. I mean,
That's how you know Mark's tall when he tells the 5'4" guy he's Yoda. That's Mark.
But I'm curious, are there any huge life-changing, working your ass off projects that you have upcoming that you'd like to talk
like
about?
it's all the book, man. Like I just hired a publicist. Like it's terrifying. It's a lot of money. We're taking money out of savings. Yeah, the book drops in September. Who knows where I'm going to be, right? Hopefully I land on things like the Lewis Howes show and Good Morning America and those kinds of things, or not. Like, I don't know if I'll get on Brene Brown's podcast or Mel Robbins' podcast or something, or I might not. Like, we'll see what happens. But that's the big thing coming up the pike is the book comes out September 1st and kind of seems like my life's going to change. And we'll see what happens. And I'm going to bring you all with me. And
Awesome.
like, there will be a wake.
And is it,
And
and I
like
think
a
I
boat,
mentioned
not like a
something.
funeral. So go ahead.
I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, but just to make sure, it's available for pre-order on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble.
Yeah, you can pre-order it, I think, at any bookstore, online or in person.
Cool.
If you go in person, you're going to have to say, hey, I want to pre-order this book, which do that because then that bookstore will be like, oh, cool, I guess we have to order that book. And there'll be books in the bookstore, which is what we want. And also, like, there's an Amazon page, there's a Barnes& and Noble page. I haven't gone to all of the online booksellers, so, like, I don't know if, like, A Books has a page, but it comes out September 1st. The name of it is Overcoming the Wall of Awful. And yeah,
Awesome.
it's my life's work.
It's amazing. Amazing. And people can jam with you on social media too, ADHD Essentials on
Yep.
pretty much everything, right?
Yeah, LinkedIn is Brendan Mahan. Everything else is ADHD Essentials.
Awesome. Well, thank you for showing us the way, Brendan. We always
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
And everyone, this was a really engaging event. It felt like a little dinner room table vibe, and everyone was engaged and had questions. It was really fun. So this is really insightful. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and I'll talk to you all soon.